Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into the For the Love of Sports podcast. My name is Ian Becerra, and I'm your host. And today I'm joined by Kayla Baptista of the North Carolina softball team. Kayla, thanks for coming on, and how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Kayla, I'm very excited to get this interview and get this going. Recently, I started to dive a little bit more into female sports, female college sports. So my last couple guests that have come on the podcast were Tessa Ward from Northeastern University, a member of the hockey team there. Great interview if you want to check that out. And then my first softball interview that I actually had was Bubba Nichols over on the UCLA softball team. But so that's over there on the West Coast now, right? So then as I was thinking, I was like, all right, now I need an East Coast softball player. And so as I was kind of going through thinking, all right, I want to go for a Power 5 school. Let's go do it. ACC, what's bigger than North Carolina? That Carolina Blue. So I just literally Googled North Carolina softball roster, all right, who's going to stand out to me? So as I'm going through the roster, as you can imagine, you see a lot of Georgias, you see some Texas, see some California, and all of a sudden in there, I see a Rhode Island, and I'm like, what the heck? So then I start clicking around and I see you on there. I'm like, okay, this is going to make a lot more sense. So I reached out and we got you on. So that's how you stood out to come initially on the podcast. It was being from the small state of Rhode Island.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely rare. All of my teammates are like, where is Rhode Island? So yeah, it's definitely unique, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it makes you stand out, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I just thought that was the funniest thing as I was going down, because again, the last thing in the world I was expecting was to see someone from Rhode Island on that softball roster. And lo and behold, there you were. But nevertheless, I'm really excited to have you on. I think it's going to be a very interesting podcast. I think we have a lot of good things to talk about. But so for those of you who don't know Kayla, we'll give you a little bit of the back of the baseball card first, a little bit about her, just so you know who we're talking to in this interview. So for those of you who don't know, Kayla is going to be a sophomore next year over at Chapel Hill for the Tar Heels. She's a middle infielder on the team, and she just played in her freshman season at UNC, hit 267 in 29 games played, with 23 of those games started. Very excellent campaign to start off her career, getting down there, getting her feet wet for the Tar Heels. But prior to North Carolina, back when Kayla was up in Rhode Island, certainly a name you would know if you were closely following and paying attention to Rhode Island female high school sports. So Kayla, her freshman year for Salle Academy, which is where she went in Providence. First year was a third-team All-State member, also an All-Division honoree. Second year, she moved up, first-team All-Division, first-team All-State. Junior year, first-team All-Division, first-team All-State, won the Rhode Island Gatorade Player of the Year, won a state title. And this is not a typo. I had to look at this a couple times to make sure I was seeing this correctly. But in her junior year, as there was no senior year last year due to COVID, but her junior year, she hit 688 with a 758 on-base percentage, slugged over 1,000, and was a perfect 34 for 34 in stolen bases. And clearly that speed didn't stop just on the softball field, as she also won a couple state champions, apparently, in the 55-meter dash in track. So certainly someone who can do it all. I mean, I'm out of breath just saying all those accomplishments. I mean, just how cool is it for you to know that you've already done, so much and accomplished so much at that high school level?
It's really cool. And I know it took a lot of hard work to accomplish all of those great things, and hard work, and all my coaches and family and friends who supported me. Like, I couldn't have done it without any of them. So, I mean, I owe it to all of them.
All right. And so that's just a little bit of the back of the baseball card on Kayla right there. And certainly if the 688 batting average, the junior year of high school, doesn't get you to stick around, I don't know what will. But before we get into that, before we start getting into the sports side of things, Kayla, I just want to ask you a couple, personal questions, a little get to know you things. So we just get to know a little bit about the person that we're speaking to rather than just the athlete. So the first question I'm going to ask you is probably the most important one of the whole podcast, which is, what is your favorite movie of all time?
I don't know. I really like baseball movies. I like Moneyball a lot. But I also really like Rudy, which is a football movie.
Yeah. So you're sticking with sports?
Yeah, sports movies, I would say.
That's not a bad thing. Moneyball's a great choice. Any other baseball movies stick out to you?
Sandlot's a classic.
That is true.
Yeah, I like Sandlot.
I would kind of agree with you there. I think growing up, like, Sandlot was the baseball movie, and then like getting a little bit older, like when Moneyball came out, I think that was just like the perfect time for me, like really getting, kind of into that side of baseball more so. And it sounds like, you too, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, sort of some of those coaching and, front office, type goals down the line. But I think, yeah, such a great movie. It's great acting. You can't go wrong with Moneyball. All right, Kayla, next question, moving on. Is your favorite meal of the day breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Probably dinner.
Okay. What's the go-to dinner? What would be the dinner of choice?
Um, if I had to make up anything, I'd probably say steak and mac and cheese.
Okay, that's a solid combo. You can't go
Yeah.
wrong with that. Actually, recently, a couple times that I've been, going out to eat, sitting outside, I think mac and cheese is one of my favorite things to get away from home, just because, especially like if I'm going out, I want to get something that, I can't necessarily do as well at home. Obviously, you can
Mhm.
put up, the crafts or the Andes or something real quick, but like when you go out, you get the breadcrumbs, you get some meat in it and stuff
Yeah.
like that's what we're talking about. All right, Kayla, next question for you. What is I what is your biggest pet peeve? Or if not one, what is one of your biggest pet peeves?
Ooh, I don't know. I'd say when like people are rude to, I don't know, waitresses and waiters or just rude in general. I don't
Rude. That's not a bad answer there.
know.
That'll work. All right. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Okay. Um, Ambitious, um, caring, and I've never really thought of it. Ambitious, caring, and hardworking, I'll say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like those.
Yeah.
And now describe your play on the field in 3 words.
Passionate, fearless, energetic.
Okay. I like those. Those are 3 good ones.
Yeah.
And last question for one of these is, what was your walk-up song for most of this year? What are you going to go with for next year? And sort of what's the rationale behind the walk-up song that you choose?
So it was Jackie Bradley Jr.'s walk-up song when he played for the Paw Sox. And I remembered it. And I think it's still his walk-up song, in Fenway. But it's I forgot the name of it, but it's like they just don't know.
They just don't know. Yeah. Definitely going to Fenway. Yeah, you hear that and that sticks out for sure. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
All right,
And yeah,
Kayla. So,
sorry.
oh no, you're
Yeah, I just love JBJ. He's awesome.
was he your favorite player growing up?
I'd say probably Mookie Betts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So based off that answer, I'm going to assume Red Sox fan as well, obviously. So then being from Rhode Island. So has the Mookie heartbreak sunk in yet from that trade? How are you feeling about that?
I was not happy at all. I started crying actually. But yeah, he's doing well in LA, so it's good for him.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's hard to see because obviously you don't want him to fail over there, but at the same time, you don't want him to do as well as he did with the Red Sox.
Yeah.
But also, I guess Verdugo's been doing pretty well too. But yeah, it's certainly hard to see him go over there, play so well, win it all with the Dodgers in his first year. That's for sure.
Yes.
All right, Kayla. So moving on, we talked about it right off the top. The fact that you are from Rhode Island, you born and raised in Rhode Island. Were you always from this area? Just can you tell me a little bit about your upbringing?
Yes, so I was born in Providence, and I grew up in Gloucester, Rhode Island. And then about 8 years ago, I moved to Smithfield, Rhode Island, which is like a 10-minute drive away from each other. But yeah.
And for you, what was it like growing up in Rhode Island? What were some of your favorite parts about it being in, that small of a state? Like when you're talking to your friends at school and they're asking you, what is Rhode Island? Where is Rhode Island? Like, what are some of the positive things that you're telling them about it?
Um, it's just absolutely beautiful in the summer. So that's one of my absolutely favorite things about Rhode Island. I love Newport, Narragansett, the mansions in Newport. But I also like really like how everything's just close together. Like you can drive like to the end of like the state, one end to another, in probably like an hour or so, would you say?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's really cool. So, and I went to LaSalle Academy for high school. So people are from all over the state from there. Um, so if I had friends from like Narragansett, like it wouldn't matter. Like I would get to see the other end of the state. And yeah, I really like Rhode Island a lot. And people don't understand why. They're like, you're so
Yeah.
weird. but it's just a thing.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. So if like you're from the area and like you're in the area a lot, it's one of those things like, it's like the sibling thing. Like you can make fun of it all you want, but if you're not from there, it's like, whoa, 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 what are you doing talking bad about it?
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Mhm.
Uh, right there. And so, Kayla, did you grow up playing sports? Were you always playing softball growing up? Were you ever into any other sports that you kind of consider playing, at that next level? Just how did you develop that love for softball?
So I grew up playing a lot of sports. I figure skated, I played soccer, softball, I played baseball for a little bit. Um, I danced. Yeah, I did a good amount of sports, but I'd say softball and soccer were always like my two most serious sports that I played. I just got recruited. I started getting recruited for softball in like 8th grade. So I'd like to say that I would have stuck with soccer a lot longer if I wasn't getting recruited that young, because I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get recruited for soccer because recruiting doesn't happen until like junior year around then.
Mhm.
And I was like, I really like softball. So like I really like them both, but I like softball a lot more. Um, so I'm really glad I stuck with softball.
Mhm. Yeah, it seems like it's working out for you so
Yeah.
far. That's for sure. So when you were deciding to go to LaSalle then for high school, was that always like on like, the front of your mind? Was that in the back of your mind thinking about like, were you going to be recruited for softball or for soccer or something of the sorts? For those who don't know, LaSalle Division One in Rhode Island, one of the better D1 high schools in the state. Not a lot of high schools in the state, but certainly one of the good ones. If you want to stand out, a lot of good athletes are from there. So I have to imagine that, played into your decision to go there. Can you just tell me a little bit about why you ended up deciding to become a LaSalle Ram?
Um, I've always known that I wanted to go to LaSalle, like even when I was like a little girl in like elementary school, because my best friend's cousin would pick us up in her LaSalle uniform. I'm like, she's so cool in her LaSalle uniform. So I always wanted to go to LaSalle. But it was just funny when I was in 8th grade and I was trying to decide where I want to go to college before like people were joking around, before I even knew where I wanted to go to high school.
Mhm.
But yeah, I always wanted to go there.
And so did that recruiting process like start for you that early? Like when were you allowed to give, I guess, that verbal? Just sort of how did that like happen for you? And especially like you're an 8th grader, like you're not very old, like, a lot can change over the course of, 4 or 5 years. So how hard was it to kind of start that process at such an early age like that?
Well, it all kind of happened at once. So, in 8th grade, I was fortunate enough to earn a spot on Dave Lottie's Rhode Island Thunder Gold team. It's a like extremely premier travel ball team that plays all over the country. Most of the players aren't actually from Rhode Island, but a lot of them are from the Northeast. But like he recruits like pitchers and other players from
Mhm.
all over the place. Um, so in case you don't know, like softball recruiting happens through travel ball, not really from high school, especially like up in the Northeast, definitely. Um, so it happened there. I got on his team. We played in some tournaments, showcase, so coaches were there watching, and then all of a sudden, my recruiting coordinator that works with the travel ball team said, "There's all these coaches that want you to call them," and I'm like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. So I called a bunch of them. Penn State was my first visit, and then I think UConn was next, and then Tennessee, and then I honestly forget, but it was crazy being in 8th grade and telling my teachers like I'm going on a college visit. And I just remember seeing one of my teachers' faces one time, and she was like, "What?" She was so confused because they don't get it. They don't really
Yeah.
understand. Um, but yeah, it was crazy. It all happened so fast. But it was fun.
So how old were you when you decided that you were going to go to Carolina?
Well, the funny thing is, I committed to Tennessee first,
Okay.
really, really young. I think it was like the end of my freshman year, I think. So I committed there, and then my junior year, I decided to decommit from there. And then the recruiting process opened up again for me. And then I think it was junior year, I decided to go to Carolina.
So why did you decide to make that switch? What happened, in the course of those couple of years that made you want to reconsider?
Things just were different. I changed a lot, like as a person. I didn't know if I wanted to go to Tennessee for the school, and I wanted something really good academically. And I know like Carolina, I was interested in like Carolina, Stanford, Duke, and like all of them. And those are like very, very good schools. And a few other of my teammates that were also committed to Tennessee also decommitted at the same time. So it was kind of like we were all talking and just to see what else was out there. The coaches at Tennessee were extremely nice about it. So yeah.
That's good. And it definitely seems like, again, you found yourself a great home, getting into a lot of games there your freshman year, and certainly a lot of room for you to grow and for the team to grow, over your next couple of years as a Tar Heel. But shifting back to Rhode Island for a minute. So you're kind of saying, the way you stand out in softball, is through that travel ball. It's not necessarily through playing in high school. So I was going to ask, did you find it a little bit harder to stand out, being from Rhode Island, being from a smaller state? But, it sounds like being on that team, on that travel ball team, it certainly gave you those opportunities. But even still, along the same lines, like when you're then playing in high school games, like within the state, just sort of how do you then challenge yourself to get better as a player? Because obviously, like you just kicked ass, like you dominated the competition, hitting as well as you did, and just continuing to get better and better. Like, how do you just not fall into a level of complacency and try and push yourself, knowing that you're still going to try and move on to bigger and better things?
Well, I am a perfectionist, like very, very bad, almost sometimes to the point where it's not good. But I think that really helped me during high school ball because like sometimes those games can be extremely long and just like, especially because we were very, very good when I was playing at LaSalle and we crushed everybody. So, I mean, it also helps when all of your teammates are doing really well too. And, like the saying, hitting is contagious and
Right.
all those things. So, I mean, we all just played extremely well together. And we just pushed each other. It takes a lot inside of yourself to like push yourself and have high expectations always.
As someone who is a perfectionist, how do you sort of handle that, just that, that desire and that drive to always want to, do the best that you're doing? So it doesn't sound like it, manifested for you in pressure, so to speak, but just sort of how did you just deal with that growing up and, continuing your career in softball, like whether it was you made an error or struck out or something like that? How do you handle, those failures when they do happen, and just sort of how do you face that pressure when it does come?
I like to think of it as like every chance you get, like from then on out, is an opportunity to do better and to do the best you can. And just like whatever happens already happened. So there's no point in dwelling over it. It'll just make it worse.
All right, Kayla, a couple more Rhode Island questions for you. So did you have to try, when you went down to North Carolina, did you have to try and explain anything to your teammates that like, and they just like kind of didn't get it? They were looking at you like you had a couple different heads, whether it was something like coffee milk or like awful waffles. Like, did you ever have any of those things where they just like Kayla, like what the hell are you talking about here?
Yeah, so I asked my teammates if they've had like coffee milk or anything before. Like I knew it was a Rhode Island thing, but I wasn't like completely sure if like nowhere else absolutely had it. But they all said no. And I actually brought a thing of coffee milk down with me, the coffee syrup. And I had my roommate try it and she was like, yeah, it's good. But I was expecting like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But
So she didn't get it.
yeah, I think coffee milk's really good.
Yeah, no, it's solid for sure, but definitely
Yeah.
like you're saying, regional thing for sure. So on the flip side of that, did you ever have like, a moment where you're like, oh, like I'm in North Carolina now. This is a lot different than being from Rhode Island.
Pretty much how like the beach for them, like where Chapel Hill was, is like 2 hours away. I was like, what? That's so far. And they're like, no, that's close. I was like, that is not close. I was like, the beach is like 30 minutes away from me.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that was pretty shocking.
was there anything else like along the sorts, whether it was like food or just sort of like the environment that you were in, the people, like the way they talked? I don't know, anything, else that kind of stood out to you as being like, oh, this is a lot different.
A lot of Southern accents, a lot of barbecue, not a lot of seafood, but I'm kind of scared to eat their seafood because
Fair.
I'm so used to our great seafood here on the coast. But they didn't have a lot of seafood anyway. And yeah, that's about it. They say I say wicked a lot.
I was just about to ask that.
Yeah. I say like, oh, that's wicked cool. And they're like, wicked. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Did they think you had like a Boston or like a Northeastern accent?
Yes. And when my parents came up, they always said that they sound like we're from the Northeast. I was like, well, that makes sense because we are.
Yeah. See, that's something I wouldn't even think about, like being from up this way, because obviously like what like a Boston accent is, and you're
Mhm.
like, oh, like that's the accent from being from up this way. And obviously like a good 90% of people actually don't have that. But I guess,
Mhm.
even still just being from up this way, some of that still trickles out, whether
Yeah.
you're in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, or wherever else. All right, Kayla. So moving along, I want to talk to you a little bit now about your first year down at UNC. Obviously, I'm sure this is a year like no other, just given everything that's been going on pandemic wise and everything of the sort. So hopefully, your next 3 years will be a lot more smooth sailing from here on out. But if you were to look back, if you were to give yourself advice, like entering freshman year again, being like, all right, Kayla, like here are a couple things you need to know. What are some of the things that you would try and tell yourself to prepare yourself for that first year at North Carolina?
Um, I would pretty much say just keep your head down, keep working. I wouldn't really change anything that I did this year. Um, yeah, just stay the course. I mean, control the things that I can control would probably be what I would tell myself, because like I would find myself sometimes getting anxious or nervous about things that I couldn't even control. Softball and in the classroom with like grades or something. So I'd say pretty much control the things that I can control and just do those the best I can.
Mhm. And so, as for that adjustment to college life, what was it like for you going down there, having that first year at school, just both, in the classroom, on the field? Just what was it like being in school this year?
Well, everything was online for us. Um, so I pretty much just went to practice and came back to my dorm to either go to class if I had class. I only had 2 classes that actually met every week. The other 3 classes were asynchronous, so we just did the work for the classes. We never like had an instructor teaching us. So I basically taught myself in those classes, but it was weird. I definitely don't think it was normal, but I don't know otherwise,
Right.
like what a normal college experience is like. Um, and then practice wise, it was interesting learning their coaching style. It's a lot different than what I'm used to. Um, just their techniques and the way they pretty much do everything. It was different, so I had to get used to that. And in general, just their practices. They're very fast paced, which is a good thing. I liked that, and um, they were hard, which I expected, but yeah, it was good.
So, going off of that, like, how was that learning curve for you? That first year, obviously, anytime you're going from playing a high school sport up to that next level up in college, you're going to have a big jump. But then also for you, like again, going from playing Northeast travel ball from playing in Rhode Island, for high school, to then all of a sudden going down playing for a Power Five school in the ACC. You're playing the best of the best competition, on a daily basis, and competing in practice against some of the best competition on a daily basis as well. So, what was it like when you went down? How was that adjustment for you? Just playing with basically all-star players all the time.
I felt extremely prepared, and I owe it all to my travel ball coaches. They are the smartest coaches I've ever played for, and I truly believe that. They prepared me so well, and I felt way over prepared, honestly, for all the practices and everything. So I seriously owe it all to them. They were amazing. And I went right in there. I competed from the jump. Like, it was great.
And so when you show up, to school, obviously you have a lot of people then to try and overtake for, position on the field, right? It's, 9 or 10 of you guys basically playing on that daily basis and things like that. And you have not only other freshmen in your class, so another, 4 or 5 other girls, then also you have sophomores and juniors, seniors, and then you have the fifth year seniors with everything that was
Yeah.
going on the last couple of years. So it's a jam-packed team, trying to find playing time. I'm sure it's tough. You were still able to do so right away, playing in a lot of games early. It sort of, declined a little bit as the season went on, but you certainly got a lot of opportunities, played a lot of games and started right away. How did you go about trying to earn a spot and compete and end up in that lineup?
Just doing the best I could every single day and just focusing on myself, each and every rep, each and every ball thrown at me, anything, just doing the absolute best I can and knowing that at the end of the day, it's not my decision. Like, as long as I do the very best I can and know I did the very best I can without having any regrets, um, the decision's up to them whether I play or not.
Mhm.
And it was kind of tough. I the was it during the pit series, I got a concussion, so that put me out for a little bit, and that really stunk and then I missed the Duke series, and then yeah, but that also was tough. Injuries. I mean, there were a lot of injuries on the team in general this season, especially our pitching staff. But yeah, just getting in the lineup, um, doing everything I can, whatever they need.
And so, Kayla, obviously you sound like a very confident player, and that's obviously a great thing for an athlete. You sort of need that mentality. It's always fun when it comes across too in interviews. Obviously, you need it on the field, but it's nice when it, expands itself and reaches outwards on that. But so you obviously need that confidence to kind of play at that level. When you started playing this past year at school, how did you feel like all of the assets of your game matched up? Was there any part of your game where it's like, oh, my fielding needs a little bit work, or I need to be able to throw the ball better, or anything like that, where you sort of got there and like, oh, I need to work on this a lot? Or did you kind of feel like you were pretty much prepared where it's like, yeah, I might not be where I want to be by the end of my career, but for the most part, like I can match up with these girls on a daily basis?
Oh yeah, I felt pretty evenly matched with all of them. Just like with everyone, like we can all do things really well. It's just doing them really well consistently. And that is what like sets you apart from everyone else is like hitting consistently, fielding ground balls consistently, like just being reliable, and that's what sets you apart at this level because everyone can do it. It's
Mhm.
just when, how much, that's those sort of things.
For sure. And so, Kayla, another thing I wanted to touch upon, so kind of like what we were talking about at first, obviously, playing in travel ball in high school, you're going to do a lot better than you will in college. So
Mhm.
when you were playing this year, hitting, in the high 200s compared to, playing in some of those other leagues where you're going to be hitting above 500, 600, whatever else, have you, how was that just like on you mentally in terms of like, all right, I'm not succeeding as much, but I'm not supposed to succeed as much at this level. How do you kind of find that balance in terms of like, no, I'm still playing pretty well, even though if you were to look at your numbers, you might not think so as much?
Yeah, that was probably another one of the hardest things for me, honestly, because I am used to like succeeding a lot, and I just had to like basically teach myself that it's okay to fail. And again, every chance I get, every at bat I get is another opportunity to um, do something good. And that could be hitting the ball hard, having a good at bat, having a quality at bat, just doing the best I can.
For sure.
Yeah.
It, Kayla, what's been your favorite part about being at North Carolina so far?
Um, Probably my teammates. Yeah,
What do you like about them?
they're just funny and they're just really good people. And like this year wasn't normal at all. So being able to have them, I was extremely lucky to have good people by my side.
Did you live with any of them at school? What was your living situation?
So that was pretty interesting. In the fall, they allowed um, freshmen to move off campus, which normally isn't allowed. So everybody in my class, besides me and Skylar Brooks, my teammate, moved off campus. So we were the only two on campus, but like we got our own rooms and like our own suite. But I just figured it was easier just to stay on campus, and it was kind of like out of nowhere. Like I didn't have any like moving stuff. I didn't have my car on campus at the time. So I was like, I don't know how I'm going to move off campus, and like driving home is 11 hours away. So I was like, I'm just going to stay on campus. It's fine. But all my other teammates moved off campus. But
And so how is that for you being, a little bit separated from them? How much could you honestly like see your teammates outside of practice this year? What were some of, that restrictions? How much did you guys bond as a group outside of, the field?
At first there were like a lot of COVID restrictions, but and then it like loosened up towards the end, especially when we started playing, because we were always around each other. But well, that was another thing. Our team got COVID, so we lost 2 weeks of games, but that's something else. But after that, and the season was going, we saw each other. I mean, every day at practice. Like during the season, we see each other every day, and we hung out a good amount. So yeah.
And so for you on a personal level, like outside of softball, how beneficial was it for you to like be around all of your teammates? Because say if you just were in school this year, like not playing a sport, just how difficult and how different do you think your experience would have been at school this year?
Extremely different, because I just felt like I was playing softball and with them the entire time. So I can't even imagine what it would be like without softball and my teammates.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, Kayla, a couple more North Carolina questions before we, talk a little bit about what you're going to be doing this summer. And I need you to be honest here. How much did the Carolina blue factor into your decision to become a Tar Heel?
Oh, a lot. I love Carolina blue. It's my favorite color. So a lot.
And how cool of a feeling is that as an athlete, like knowing not only are you, again, playing for a good school in a good conference, but like, no, you're playing for one of the most iconic brands in college sports. Like you can go on and name, a couple different ones, whatever it is, just some of those colors, even Tennessee with that orange, that one sticks out. Texas with their colors as well. Florida over there with the Gators, UCLA too, as well. So you do have a lot of schools that have their own iconic colors, but North Carolina blue's got to be at the top. So how cool of a feeling is it, to be able to wear those colors each and every day?
Yeah, I love it. And I love our uniforms a lot. Our Carolina blue uniform is my favorite because no one else has it. It's so unique. So it's awesome.
Yeah, right. I don't think you can go wrong with that. That's for sure. And so Kayla, obviously again, this year a little bit different kind of than what years are like normally. So what were sort of, some of your interactions like with the fans and, things like that this year? Did you have them at a lot of games, any games? Just sort of what was that interaction like? And especially, basketball games, on campus, or at, basketball games and stuff, you have a lot of people there going to them, things like that, even baseball games too. So what was it like probably to have, a limited experience and not getting to truly experience that, Carolina fandom right away?
Um, it was different. At our games, at least, we had limited capacity. So like we could like hear people cheering and stuff. But when we played at Duke, they weren't allowed to have any fans. So it was really weird. And I don't know if I would have been able to play a lot of games with like no one there. It's just so quiet. And there were announcers talking to nobody, which made no sense, but that was kind of funny. But in terms of like going to games, I went to a lot of baseball games when I could, and those were fun. They had a lot of fans there, even though it was limited capacity. It seemed like there was a lot. Football games we were allowed to go to. It also seemed like there were a lot of people there, but it obviously like wasn't packed like usual. I've never been to a North Carolina basketball game, so I honestly don't know what that's like. but from what I've heard, it's crazy and it's a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
So you'll have to find out next year then.
Yes.
And so, Kayla, kind of what we were just saying right there. So, sort of some of that, fan interaction and that fan experience this year was a little bit different, obviously, with limited in some capacity. And obviously, each sport was a little bit different and each school was a little bit different. But so, as a newer player on the team, like if you had a message to some of, the North Carolina fans, like if you were sort of introducing yourself to them, like what are some of the things that you would, say about yourself, just as a player, as a person, sort of if you're to, give that introduction for the next 3 years, just like who is Kayla Baptista as a player and why should North Carolina fans be excited to see you out there on the field each and every day?
Um, just that I play with a lot of passion and heart, and it's something that a lot of people have said that like shines through when they watch me play, and that some people say it's inspiring. And it's fun to watch someone that's like loving what they're doing and having a blast and um, doing that thing. So it'll be a good time.
I like it. Hey, so the energy. So where does that come from? Like, so you don't get, so it doesn't sound like you get tense. It doesn't sound like, you get too nervous out there. Just how do you keep that composure? How do you just get out there and keep doing your thing and let that energy, let that passion show through?
I'm just an energetic player. I don't really know how to explain it. I mean, I know Ralph, the Tennessee coach, he called me Energizer Bunny when he always saw me. But yeah, I don't really think a lot when I play. So it's just kind of like what I do. Like I just have fun.
Mhm. So he called you Energizer Bunny. Did you get any nicknames this year being at school? Did any of your teammates or coaches give you a nickname?
This one's not really good, but Crack Rabbit.
Oh, okay. So they
One of
so they
my
took a little spin on that.
yeah, one of my teammates calls me that, but it's only because I'm like energetic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you basically got to get a better, you have 3 more years to get a better nickname is what I'm hearing.
No, they don't like call me that out loud. She just like she like
Refers to you as that.
when I'm talking to her, she's like Crack Rabbit.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But either way, so you have 3 years then to get an actual nickname.
Yes.
We'll see what happens with that. All right, Kayla, moving on. Last topic that I want to touch upon real quick. So when we were setting up this interview, I'm just kind of going through a list of different things to talk about. One of the things that you mentioned to me, something that I got super excited, super passionate about, and that is the fact that you were going to be interning this summer in the Cape Cod Baseball League, working with the Wareham Gatemen, going to be down there on the field, helping out with the coaches. Can you tell me about how that opportunity came about and just what are you looking forward to about it this summer?
Okay, so I have always had a passion for baseball. Huge Red Sox fan. I have season tickets. My parents have season tickets to the games. So we've always gone to all of the games when we could. Um, so with that, I started getting into coaching baseball lessons and softball lessons. But I just like I love baseball so much. So I realized after I went on an Aruba trip, and I coached baseball there, that's where I realized that I want to coach baseball for a living because I it's just like it makes me so happy. And I get so excited when I saw those like little Reuben kids like hitting because like they want to play professional baseball in America. So like coaching them and helping them out like achieve their dreams um was just so much fun to me. And I had a blast there. So I was like, okay, I want to coach in professional baseball. So I went back home, I continued doing lessons, and then I reached out to Rachel Balkovec, who is the first full-time female hitting coach for the Yankees. And so her and I set up a mentorship where we did Zoom calls back and forth a few times, and that was an amazing experience. So she helped me out get in touch with Driveline Baseball. I'm gonna be taking lessons from them this summer just to like learn about them, and that's where she got hired from the Yankees from. So she got in touch with them for me too and helped me out with that. So I'm going to learn from them, hopefully eventually intern with them. But while I was like working on that, I was like, I want to do something else like this summer. So I started emailing summer league teams. And so I emailed teams from the NECBO, which is like the New England Baseball League, like close to here. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to try to like give it a stretch and go for the Cape Cod League. Cause that's the next step to professional baseball. I was like, that would be so cool. So I took a chance and I emailed Coach Lang and Coach Weinstein. And Coach Weinstein was actually the one that answered my email. And I was like, oh my goodness, like he's so famous. He was so nice. He was like, I sent your information to Coach Lang because like I guess he's in charge of setting up the coaching internships. So yeah, and that's kind of how that happened. And then we had a phone call and set it up.
And for this podcast, I always post a lot of visual clips with it too as well. It'll go online on Apple and Spotify. That's where you're going to find it. But also there will be a lot of, visual clips on social. And so for those listening right now, Kayla hasn't stopped smiling this whole time since I asked that question. So definitely, all that energy and passion, it certainly shows through, and it's going to show through when we put out a couple clips of this as well. So Kayla, a couple questions for you now going off of that. Just what does it mean to you to get that experience and have that opportunity to work, like you said, in what is, that next step towards professional baseball? What's it mean to you to be in the Cape Cod League this summer?
Oh, it means everything. I was so excited when he told me to give him a call and like set it up. It just means everything. Like he told me, he was like, it's going to be a lot of work. Like you're getting to the field at like 10 a.m. and you're not leaving until midnight. And I was like, I am okay with that. Like, and it's obviously not unpaid internship. I don't even care. Like I would do it for free, like over and over again. It's just, I can't wait. It's amazing.
So what are you hoping to get out of this summer? Like, what are going to be some of the things that you're looking to, just improve upon in terms of like your knowledge? So for those who don't know, I was actually an intern in the Cape League myself, was the beat writer for the Gatemen a couple of years ago. So I have that connection down there as well. Definitely. That's another reason why I'm excited to see you go there, Kayla. And so I was talking with Andrew Lang, who's the general manager for the team the other day, just asking a little bit about what your responsibilities, things like that are going to be. And he was basically saying, she's just going to be helping out with the coaches, taking instruction from them, learning from them, not like teaching the players, so to speak, but helping them out with whatever they need, which obviously then means you have a front row seat to what's going on. So whether it's, hitting the fungo, throwing batting practice, whatever else. So what are you hoping to learn from this summer? Just how you do think this experience, like being that close, is going to help you in your career going forward?
I'm just going to take everything in like a sponge. I'm going to like flush everything out that I've learned like before and just take everything in that they're teaching me and just really use all that information. And I'll probably end up keeping a journal, honestly, and just writing everything down that I learn each day, so I don't forget it.
So you can be Michael Chavis in the dugout. There you go. And so another thing that I wanted to kind of go off of that. So, that's kind of hopefully how it's going to help you get into that coaching career. But in terms of softball for next year, I have to assume, there's going to be some sort of like similarities or things that can translate over, obviously while you're talking about baseball, but then maybe you're going to be like, oh, like that could probably help me while playing in terms of softball. Did you think that it could potentially help you like as a player for your next season? Like, what are your expectations in terms of, oh, like I want to use this also to better myself in my playing career as well?
Definitely. Baseball and softball are extremely similar. And in my opinion, I think baseball and softball swings are the same. So learning about other hitters and their philosophies and like other coaches and their philosophies will definitely help me as a hitter, technique wise and philosophy wise. And also like learning from the coaching standpoint, like what it looks like from the outside looking in, because like
You're always playing.
I gave lessons and stuff, but I've never been like coaching like at a serious level. Like I've coached like rec ball teams and stuff, but not the Cape Cod League. So it's going to be interesting to see what they're thinking and what it seems like, because I'm always the one playing. So it'll be
Definitely.
cool.
And so Kayla, jumping back a little bit, when we first started talking about the Cape League, so you mentioned your relationship with Rachel. So just wondering what your relationship with Rachel Balkovic means to you.
Oh, it means so much. Um, she has inspired me so much and helped me like formulate my cover letter, resume, all of that stuff that I sent to these coaches in the Cape Cod League, in which they all loved too. So I mean, she helped me a lot get all of these great things going for my hopes and dreams of becoming a baseball coach. And she believes in me. She calls me like not an experiment. I forgot exactly what she says, but basically her mini me. Yeah. So yeah.
And so when you're talking with her, when you're learning from her, how much of that relationship is based on just on baseball stuff, but then how much of it is based on trying to be a female making it in baseball? Like where does that balance stand? Like again, how much of that is, you're actually trying to learn about, because she knows hitting and stuff like that. How much of it is you're trying to learn from her from that baseball perspective, but also there's that whole other side of it in terms of, trying to get in, especially on the coaching side. That's going to
Yeah.
be a lot more difficult than say, just working for a team or working, in a front office. Like you're, again, they're doing that sort of instruction, not having actually played baseball, even though softball is similar. Just how has that relationship been in terms of her trying to teach you stuff about baseball versus trying to help you out on the female aspect side of things?
So her experience with getting a coaching job in baseball was extremely unique and very difficult. So she was telling me how she had to change her name on her resume to Ray instead of Rachel. And before then, she was getting no calls back or anything. She was in strength and conditioning. And then she got her first call from, I think it was the Astros, for a strength and conditioning job with them because she changed her name to Ray. I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. So it was extremely difficult for her. But her big thing was now you've noticed how a lot more females are being hired as coaches in male sports. So she was telling me how women are the popular hire now, which is really unique. So she was telling me how now is the time more than ever that like this is a great opportunity to get hired because, in her words, are like women are the popular hire now.
How much confidence does that give you going forward that, you can actually make this dream become a reality?
A lot of confidence. Yeah.
And so looking down the line, what are sort of some of those career aspirations? What do you, aspire to be? Is it to be, hitting coach for a team, manager sort of, if you were to put down, a couple of years down the line or whatever, once you get to that point where, Kayla has her dream job, what would it be?
Ooh. It might be either a hitting coach or general manager for the Boston Red Sox. It has to be for the Red Sox.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not the Red Sox, I've been thinking more about it lately. I wouldn't mind coaching collegiately because like I really love the idea of like helping people like achieve their goals of getting to the major leagues. I think that's really, really unique and cool. So I don't know. I still don't know exactly, but I know it's in baseball.
Okay. I like that. So Heim Bloom's got to see this and then take you under your wing and then boom, you're all set.
Yeah.
And last question for you, Kayla. So for next year, for your next couple of years at Carolina, what are your goals as a player and just in the classroom as well? Obviously, as you were just saying, you want to, take it to Major League Baseball and get in the door there and work your way, up the ranks there. But as for your next couple of years at Carolina, what are you hoping to accomplish as a Tar Heel before your time is up?
Softball wise, is to stay consistently in the lineup and just, I don't know, crush it and just do really well, use all my tools, hitting, slapping, bunting, everything. And just playing loose, fearlessly, and confidently, softball wise. Academically, just continue to get good grades. because I know that will pay off and help potentially going into grad school and all of that good stuff. So yeah.
And those definitely seem like great goals to achieve and accomplish. And hopefully, a couple of years down the line, you can look back at this and be like, yep, did that. And, you checked all those boxes.
Yes.
Well, Kayla, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to come on. I really appreciate it. I think it was definitely a good conversation, very interesting, especially I think a lot of the stuff towards the end there, in terms of just being a female trying to get into baseball, especially on the coaching side. I definitely think it's something probably a lot more people want to do than actually, set out and do. So to see you doing it, especially while also playing softball, I think it's a really cool thing to see. Always good to talk about the Gatemen and hear a little bit, about your experience there at North Carolina, your first year, and growing up in Rhode Island, and obviously as a Red Sox fan.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
No problem, Kayla. Hopefully we can do it again sometime. Thank you.
Yes.